Michael Beale's body was still warm. We didn't even have time to process the fact that Villa's number 2 was off to Queen's Park Rangers. Our fan base didn't even have a chance to go into mass hysteria and meltdown mode before, boom, Steven Gerrard and the club appoint a new number 2 in Neil Critchley. This is hopefully a microcosm of what the new ruthless Aston Villa may look like, and there's much to analyze. But first, I want to thank Gary Simmons for the newest addition to the Parlour, the flag from the 40th anniversary match a couple of weeks ago. I mean, by this point, I was already chosen by Aston Villa, but that achievement galvanized my love for the club. And what a guy, Gaz, just sending this out of the goodness of his heart, because that could have fetched a bit on eBay, and instead he sends it to me. We have a fantastic fan base that is global, and I am so deeply appreciative of that. To celebrate the new hire and to get into the show, I'm pouring Auchentoshan 12. Do you know why? It's reliable, trustworthy, dependable, highly credentialed, and you know what? It might actually end up being better than what we had before. Lots to unpack on this show, and I think we should start with Beale's decision to leave what seems to be a pretty good time at Aston Villa to go it alone at Loftus Road. Now, it's weird how football is such a small world, because I know a couple of people who know Beale all the way back to his youth days at Charlton Athletic, and they say the same thing as everybody else. Impressive guy. A very good friend of mine, Nick Dazovic, a former Canadian international and a UEFA Pro license holder, studied Beale at a conference and was extremely impressed. And Nick's not an easy guy to impress. And then you have all my Rangers fans who are saying that it was Beale who masterminded the revolution and evolution at Ibrox. So there's no question we have lost a very highly respected football guy from the club at a time when it seemed like Aston Villa was really starting to go places. And what I found extremely interesting as well was Emi Martinez's admission that in his career, he had never ever seen the assistant doing all the talking in the technical meetings. Now, at a great club, this kind of phenomenon should be occurring all the time. You bring in good to great people, you develop them, you promote them. You should be very happy when they want to test and challenge themselves somewhere else. You should be giving them your blessing and your support. And that's a good sign that this is exactly what's happened. And clearly, because of what's happened since, there would have been open lines of communications between Michael Beale, Steven Gerrard, and the club. Otherwise, they would have never have been able to appoint a successor so quickly. That is also a very good sign, a sign of good communication, a sign of mutual respect, and a sign of class. Because if Michael Beale wasn't happy, he would have slipped his resignation letter under Steven Gerrard's office door at 5 o'clock on a Friday and would have caught everybody by surprise. That's what you do when you want to screw people. I've coached an awful lot, mostly in the youth space, a little bit of adult, and I do enjoy it immensely because it's fun to watch people grow and succeed and progress and enjoy playing football and be in positive environments. It's a passion of mine. And I believe that you are born as either one of two people. You're either a leader or you support the leader. You're either a general or you are a lieutenant. And in Aston Villa's case, there's no doubt who the general is. The general is Steven Gerrard. He deals with the board. He deals with the media. He deals with all the staff and all the players. He is undeniably the figurehead of the club, and he should have the final say on all pertinent footballing matters. And he also has the charisma to attract people to the football club. We've already seen that. But the general cannot operate without lieutenants. You need those people around. You need them on the field, and of course, you need them in your backroom staff. Now, purely from an outsider's standpoint, I have no insights as to what it looks like behind the scenes. But from my perspective, Beale looks to me personality-wise much more like a lieutenant. And maybe that's partially because he's got such a strong general next to him. And it seemed as though he was happy in that role. And based on the last 3 to 4 years, it was a very productive relationship. But somewhere along the way, he clearly wanted to be his own man, test himself, and challenge whether or not he had it in him to be a general. If you look around and try to find assistants that moved on to be very good and productive long-term managers, it's not easy. Jose Mourinho was under Sir Bobby Robson in the early days, and Andres Villas-Boas was underneath Mourinho. You also had Carlo Ancelotti being the mentor to Zinedine Zidane, and maybe the best examples are the glorious Liverpool years where one manager was replaced by an assistant after the other, starting with Shankly, then going on to Paisley and Fagan and Dalglish and Moran. But it's not easy to find those success stories. And this is where I will be fascinated to watch how Michael Beale evolves as a manager over the coming seasons, because let's be honest, he is not Steven Gerrard in that type of leader. And his players may appreciate and really enjoy his training sessions, his preparations, his reviews, but will they buy into him and his vision of how football should be played? And can he attract new talent to Loftus Road, given the financial resources available to him compared with, say, an Aston Villa? And QPR is one of those teams that's always in and around the top 30-ish of English football. He'll now be tasked with getting them into the top 20 and keeping them there. Now, what Villa loses here is a guy who used to analyze the opponent and create the entire tactical approach to the match, including video analysis and sessions, and of course, the training sessions. The guy worked with individuals, with the units, and with the collective team, and based on some of the games we saw against Man City and Liverpool, for example, it felt sometimes like the plan was sound, but the personnel couldn't pull it off. And now here we are at a stage in Aston Villa's history where it looks like the talent of the personnel is improving exponentially. So enter Neil Critchley, another connection to Liverpool and the youth academy days where they would have crossed paths, and a guy that Steven Gerrard said was his number one target for appointment to replace Michael Beale. And what's really fascinating about this dynamic is Critchley is doing the exact opposite of what Beale is doing. Critchley is a guy, well-credentialed, who decided, I want to step away from youth football and challenge myself with the pros. And so he takes on Blackpool in League One, gets them promoted and consolidated in the championship. And now he's saying, you know, all of this that I've built over here, I'm going to walk away from that because I want to go over there and work with Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa Football Club. And that is a very good sign because it tells me that Villa is a destination, not just for players, but for technical people as well. Do you know, Critchley actually started his coaching journey as a teenager while he was at Crewe under Steve Holland, who's now the England #2 man. And Crewe, of course, was a club at the time that was famous for moving young players through an academy-type system and into the pro ranks. And perhaps more significantly, as the U23 coach of Liverpool, it was Critchley who was in charge of that EFL Cup game where Liverpool lost 5-0 because the senior team was off to the Club World Cup. But this was a time when Liverpool was reimagining the pathway from youth to first team. And Jurgen Klopp really wanted to streamline that process. And now here we are, with Aston Villa boasting a lot of raw materials in its academy, and a guy comes in who's very familiar with that pathway and how to keep those players in that pipeline moving. Villa's new #2 had great relationships with both Jurgen Klopp and Brendan Rodgers, and he still taps them up every once in a while for advice. But he had a tough start at Blackpool, and he said himself that the turning point was actually him appointing a former Villa man in Colin Calderwood, who played for the club in 99-2000. So he kind of went through the same thing Steven Gerrard is going through right now, trying to find somebody to complement him to crack the team on. And between the two of them, they did. By the way, Critchley and Gerrard are only a year apart, but it's kind of hard to tell. I'd like to know what fountain of youth Steven Gerrard is bathing in, but who cares? because Critchley possesses one of the highest coaching certifications you can get. That's the UEFA Elite Badge. Only 15 other people in the world possess this level of certification, and he will put it to good use because he's now coaching elite players. But the best thing about this appointment, and the fact that it's happened now, is that there will be no disruption to preseason preparations, something Steven Gerrard has alluded to over and over again over the past few months. I just want a cohesive, productive preseason with everybody together so we can plan and prepare for opening day. 2 new faces in the door on top of Phil Coutinho, a settled staff, and just compare that to what happened this time last year. Richard O'Kelly suddenly out the door. Yes, I know he was close to retirement, but he was Dean Smith's longtime and trusted number 2. John Terry departs to not be a distraction as he was searching for his own gig. And isn't it interesting that JT still hasn't been appointed as manager by anyone as of yet? And then, of course, Jack Grealish walks out the door and it felt like everything fell apart. And then they had the appointment of Aaron Danks and Austin McPhee, which felt like it was a forced hire from above, like an arranged marriage, unlike this appointment, where all the parties are kind of already familiar with one another. I've wondered aloud on this very show whether Villa's technical staff is a bit too bloated, and I do wonder what will happen with Danks and McPhee, seeing as how Gerrard inherited them. And I also wonder behind the scenes whether or not Gary McAllister or Tom Culshaw had designs on actually being promoted to the number 2 role, and we'll never know those things, but those are the kind of things that contest the cohesion and the synergy of a group. But in the end, it looks like Villa got a very good candidate who's, as I've mentioned numerous times, highly credentialed for a very specialized role that is very, very demanding. And you know how it is, even in an office environment or a school environment. Suddenly, a new person comes to the team that's highly respected, and everybody seems to just kind of snap to attention. More ideas are exchanged. I think this could be a very good thing for Aston Villa, and I'm dying to find out how it all comes together. So welcome, Neil, to Aston Villa Football Club. It's always a good sign when the supporters of the club you are leaving are as disappointed as the supporters of Blackpool Football Club are today. And we know, we could feel it. There are still imminent changes afoot, that the squad will continue to improve and evolve over the summer, which will include some departures as well. And I can't wait to see how it all fits together. Until next time, thank you for watching. Feel free to tell a friend about my show. Subscribe if you can. And as always, up the mighty Villa.